Mando-Lizzo-ran episode dropped last night. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Marina Baskarin from Deadpool. She is in talks to come back for Deadpool 3, but she explains that there's a reason she may not be back for it after all. Could Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland actually have a presence in Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse? Maybe, yes. We'll talk about that. Donald Glover confirms that he wants to play Lando again and that he is in talks to do it again. We're going to give our review of the Mario Brothers. It's not so crazy to believe that Apple could, in fact, be lining up to buy Disney. That, and of course, only about 1 in 3 people who started watching the Rings of Power Lord of the Rings show on Amazon actually finished the damn show. That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, and streaming. Not just giving opinion, but also giving information and context so you guys can have your own well-informed opinions. And of course, when you're talking to your buddies about movies, you'll know more than they do. Anyway, joining me here in the house today, we got Ray over there. He's very tired after watching a midnight thing of Mario Brothers. Sitting beside him, running the show, is Jonathan Voico. We got Taylor Gonzalez is here. It is Wednesday. That means Chris Carr has the day off. She has Wednesdays off. But most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it into 2 parts. The first part of the show, we're going to talk about some predetermined topics. Then in the second part of the show, we're going to take your questions that you guys have submitted to us on our tip link at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip. You can see it right down there. And the good news is you don't have to wait until the show is live to fire in a question. You can fire in a question to that tip link anytime, 24/7, and we'll get to those in the second part of the show. All right, guys. With that all down, let's dive into our first thing here, shall we? And that one is this. It kind of came out of nowhere. Jonathan Majors his star is one of the hottest rising in the business today. I don't think many people would disagree with that assessment. Coming off of huge performances and awards acknowledgments that he got for being in, what was that damn HBO show that he did? Lovecraft Country. For Lovecraft Country, he was so great in that. He's just continued to be great. He got cast as Kang. He was fantastic in Creed 3. And then, of course, about almost 2 weeks ago now, I guess, we're getting close, this out of nowhere, he got arrested for assault and strangulation, I believe, were the things, stemming from an alleged incident that happened between him and a woman that some reports are saying was his girlfriend, some reports are saying it wasn't, whatever. It's not really kind of relevant to the discussion right now. Now, what was interesting at the time, and what made it seem at the time like this was going to disappear very, very quickly, was the fact that very shortly after the arrest was made, I think it was within 24 hours, maybe 48 at most, Jonathan Majors' lawyer put out statements, some very bold statements that basically concluded with, we expect these charges are going to be dropped immediately. We're going to have these charges dropped. And because here's what she said. Let's go over and take a look at this. There are several claims that Jonathan Majors' lawyer made back when this happened. Number one was that the lawyer claimed there was clear video evidence proving that the allegations were false. Majors' lawyer was quite adamant about it. We have video. It conclusively shows that the allegations are false. Okay, good. Next, the lawyer also claimed that there is witness testimony from the driver of the cab in question that proves that the allegations are false. Okay, great. Next, they said there are 2 other witness sworn pieces of testimony that prove that the allegations are false. Well, awesome. Next, Jonathan Majors' lawyer said that the woman in question recanted the allegations. All right.
Yeah.
Now we're cooking. And then the Jonathan Majors' lawyer wrapped things up by saying, all this proof, she said, we're going to submit this to the DA tomorrow. All this proof, we expect the charges to be dropped. Great. Now that sounds pretty cut and dry. We've got video evidence. We got driver testimony. We got 2 other independent witnesses' testimony claiming that the woman recanted her testimony. All this stuff, great. This is going to put an end to the story very quickly. Except it hasn't. It hasn't. As a matter of fact, new reports are now coming out that, of course, the Army, which was running an ad campaign with Jonathan Majors, they put a temporary pause on those ads because they wanted to see what was going to shake out with this. But they actually ended up paying, one report says, they even spent $1.8 billion to kind of cancel a bunch of ad buys they had. I mean, the report said 1.8 billion. It might have been I'm guessing it probably meant to say 1.8 million. But at any rate, for ad buys and reworking the ad campaign, all that kind of stuff. And now there's even this news story that Jonathan Majors, I think you have the link there for that, Jonathan. Jonathan Majors was supposed to be a speaker at Penn State. They canceled him at the last second. And again, I get it because you don't want to have somebody who's currently facing charges of strangulation and assault, whether, whatever comes of those charges. Right now, that person is being charged. As of this moment, the charges have not been dropped. So I get it. That's not Penn State saying Jonathan Majors is guilty. No, they're just saying, look, these allegations are your problem. They're not our problem. And if we have you come and speak at our event, they become our problem as well, and we got to deal with it. So we're taking a step back. We hope everything works out. I get it. But again, despite all these things, there was video evidence, witness testimony from the driver, 2 other witnesses, women in question. Like, if all that was absolutely true on face value, then you would think, and because I would think, that, well, great. Majors' lawyer is going to walk into the DA's office Monday morning, submit all this, and the DA is going to go, wow, yeah, okay, yeah, charges dropped. But they haven't. Here we are nearly a couple of weeks later, and these charges are still pending against Jonathan Majors. Now, I'm not even here to talk about all the Twitter drama that goes on, because it seems like in the world and time of Twitter, whenever somebody has their name out there, people want to crawl out of the waterwork and say, I think Jonathan Majors is mean. Like, I don't care about any of the Twitter nonsense that's going on. I really don't. But it is curious that here we are weeks later and the charges still stand, which to me implies, and I'm only using the word implies, to me implies that maybe these statements that Jonathan Majors' lawyer made about the definitive nature, how clear-cut all this was, maybe they weren't as clear-cut as maybe they were suggesting. Now, again, we're all in a pure bubble of speculation right now, 100%. This is all speculation right now. I'm just saying, as an outside observer, and I think probably many of you guys at home are in the same boat as me, as an outside observer, when I first heard all the claims by Majors' lawyer, I expected this just to be gone. But here we are weeks later, and all that tells me is that, well, the DA must have something that makes them think they shouldn't just instantly drop the charges. Now, what that is, how serious it is, whether or not Jonathan Majors is guilty or not, I have no idea. I wasn't there, whatever. But it does raise at least a question. What happens right now? Because the longer this drags out, the more of a pain in the ass this is going to become for Kevin Feige and the people at Marvel. Because when this first happened, I thought, well, really, this isn't going to be a big deal for Marvel. Look, if he did it, they'll recast it, whatever. But it sounds like this is going to be forgotten about in a couple of weeks. Well, here we are a couple of weeks later, and it still hasn't been forgotten about. And Marvel's got a time schedule. They've got a timetable to deal with. And what do you do? Now, I get the temptation for people to say, well, Marvel shouldn't do anything because you're innocent until proven guilty. Absolutely 100% for sure. But like I mentioned in the Penn State thing, if you're Marvel, this isn't your problem, right? But if you've got a guy who's currently being charged in court with criminal offenses, do you want to be associated with that? Now, what Marvel is doing right now, what Kevin Feige and Marvel and everybody over there is doing right now, is they're sitting in their corporate offices with their fingers crossed going, please let there be an announcement from a DA's office any minute now announcing that the charges have been dropped so we can just move on with this. But if it goes on much longer, they're going to start asking questions about what they do moving forward. Because again, Kevin Feige doesn't want to have to get in front of a press event and answer questions about why they have somebody starring in a movie of theirs that is currently facing criminal charges in court for strangulation and assault. And again, if they decide to move on from him, that's not Marvel saying he's guilty of it. It's just saying, hey, this is Jonathan Majors' problem. It's not our problem. And if we bring Jonathan Majors into our productions moving forward, while these charges are still hanging over there, it's going to become our problem. And it's going to become our production's problem. And it's going to become our shareholders' problem. And so it really sucks. And so, again, I guess just the story here is that I'm surprised we haven't had this resolved yet. I hope it gets resolved quickly, man, because after watching Creed 3, not so much Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but after watching Creed 3, I want as much Jonathan Majors on screen as possible. So I really do hope this gets resolved quickly. If it doesn't, though, and I'm just saying, the longer this drags out, there's going to be more and more high-level meetings that are going to happen over at the halls of Disney and Marvel as they try to figure out what their strategy is going to be. Anyway, guys, that's a whole lot of ifs, ands, or buts when we really don't have a lot of concrete information right now. So what do you think about all this at the moment? Do you think this will play out quickly like most of us hope it does? Do you think this could cause longer-term problems? Do you think this is going to be an issue for Marvel? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this. Last night was not only the opening of the Mario Brothers, because we went to go see it at midnight last night, but it's also the new episode of The Mandalorian. A Mandalorian show that I've got to say is kind of hanging in the balance for me as far as this season goes. I love season 1. I love season 2. Season 3 for me, after 5 episodes, is kind of like, this season could go either way. There's some stuff I really, really like in it. There's some stuff that looks, I'll say it, amateurish at best. So we go into episode 6, the third last episode of the season. Because finally, at the end of episode 5, they introduced what we all thought was going to be the main storyline of this season. The retaking of Mandalore. Finally. I literally said that out loud when I was watching episode 5. When they finally said we would retake Mandalore, I'm like, finally. Only took you more than half the season to get to it. So here I am, sitting down after watching Mario, turning on Mandalorian, saying, now we're going to get some retaking Mandalore action. Now we're going to get Moff Gideon back. All this good stuff is going to happen. And instead, I got a robot carrying a card to a nightclub. That's what I got. Oh, by the way, I should give you guys a little bit of warning. Screw it. We're going to talk about this episode I'm going to give some spoiler details about this episode so we can talk about it. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers for The Mandalorian, last night's episode, go ahead and hit mute for now until we come back, or, even turn away from your computer screen until we come back.
Turn away.
Until we come back. But what the hell? What the hell was that? Wait a second. So you've hijacked what should be the story, retaking Mandalore, that took you to the end of episode 5 to even acknowledge. And what are we going to start with? Okay, well, I'm going to go talk to the Mandalorians. It's vitally important. Great. What, you want me to go solve crime first on your planet before I go over there and talk to my people? Sure, okay. I'll go solve crime. Because I'm Ruff McGruff, the crime dog. What the hell was the name of that dog, by the way?
Oh, McGruff? Yeah, it was McGruff.
It was McGruff? Yeah. McGruff. I'm McGruff, the crime dog. Woof, woof. And away they go to investigate this big crime. And I kid you not, for those of you who have not seen it, the breaking of the case came when they shot down a battle droid, and upon inspecting the body of the battle droid, they found the card to a local droid nightclub.
That's amazing.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Who knew when we were watching the prequels as the battle droids were marching into battle, they all had wallets in their back pocket. I mean, I was telling Taylor this morning. I literally had to stop the show, and I said to myself, there it is. And I said to myself, I must have missed something. And I rewound it about a minute or 2 minutes and played through. It's like, nope. She literally just searched the body of a battle droid and found a nightclub card. And of course, they go to the nightclub where the bartender tells them everything. I mean, it's just so bad. And I'm watching this and I'm like, why are we not talking about Mandalore? This is the third last episode of the season. What are we doing? What are we doing here? And then the cameos. One of the big problems, I've talked about this before, one of my big problems with Mandalorian, even in the seasons that I love, like season 1, season 2, even in the seasons that I totally love, one of the things that drives me nuts a bit about Mandalorian is, look everybody, whether it's going back to Tatooine or the bar or what character, but also kind of, remember when Stephen Root made his cameo appearance in Book of Boba Fett? Like even then I was like, that just felt out of place. All of a sudden Jack Black and Lizzo are there, and Doc Brown? Mm-hmm. I mean, okay, look, all credit where it's due. Jack Black looks magnificent there. And I gotta say, Lizzo looks like a Star Wars queen. She does. So, I mean, I will give it that. But I mean, it's like you just instantly completely pulled out of the show with like, oh, here's some monster cameos, just boom, boom, boom. And look, I know this is gonna be misinterpreted, I know, but look, I'm just gonna say what it is. Lizzo is a magnificent musical force. And I did not know until last night that she can't act. That was rough. that was a little bit rough. And listen, I love Jack Black. I'm not sure Jack Black's performance was that much better.
Great Scott.
Great Scott. Christopher Lloyd was the best guy in the episode. He's totally the best guy in the episode. And then when they finally go through 95% of the episode, they finally get to meeting up with the other Mandalorians. And it is only then that Din goes, oh, yeah, that thing that happened 4 episodes ago, it turns out the sword is actually yours. That only comes up now? He only, like all of us, all of you guys at home, all of us, we all figured that out when Bo-Katan showed up in the caverns and killed the guy that took out Din. There it is. We all knew it. But only now. So it was incredibly anticlimactic, right? Because when they set that up in Mandalorian season 2, when Moff Gideon reveals that, you beat me and got the sword, and now that's a problem for her, and you go to Bo-Katan's face and she's super mad because the only way, you can't give it to her, the only way she can get it now is by beating you in combat. And it set up what we felt was going to be this big story, even as they start working together, that at some point, they're going to have to resolve this, right? They set all this up, and it was a great setup. And then it was, oh, wait a minute. Now, oh, sorry, let me do this. Wait a minute. Now that I think about it, the sword is yours. Here you go. And he hands her the sword, and that's it. That was the big resolution to this huge plot point that they set up in the previous season. By the way, I see some people complaining about the action in the fight. I thought the fight was quite good.
Just wait till he goes to Tatooine to talk to Boba Fett next episode.
I say, what do you think about this, Boba Fett? Do you got any Jawas around? We haven't seen enough of them. How's that biker gang of yours going? How's the Vespa crew going?
Still kicking.
Remember to shake her hand. Number 1 rule of combat. Shake her hand.
I don't know. And I feel bad because none of it was the directing fault. Like that, listen, John Favreau wrote that script himself. It's the first credit came out, I'm like, who wrote this thing? And it was like written by John Favreau. I'm like, oh man. And you know what? It's funny because my favorite director in the Mandalorian verse, if you will, my favorite director in the Mandalorian verse, Bryce Dallas Howard. Like you could tell she was trying to spin gold out of straw. She was trying. But I mean, that script was so bad that there was nothing she could do. I mean, it's like, Ray, I think it was like, man, I don't know why she just didn't turn that episode down. We said before the show started.
Money.
Look, there are still 2 episodes left. And I still think this is a season. If they nail the final 2 episodes, I know. I'm sounding overly. There's only 3 left. If they can nail the final 3,
only 5 minutes left.
if they nail these last 5 minutes, if they crush these last 5 minutes, this season could be saved.
I mean, we said that with Obi-Wan. We said that with Boba Fett.
Yeah, we did.
Maybe the Mandalorian ended on that handoff to Luke.
I mean, look. You had to keep the story going forward. I'm just like, what's going on? What's going on? Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? They could still nail the landing, guys. 2 episodes left. What did you think about last night's episode of The Mandalorian? I thought it was maybe the worst episode of the series. I think it might have been the worst episode of the series. I don't know. Maybe you loved it. You know, I read one article on one of the outlets that I love that wrote, Mandalorian, finally, with episode 6, they get things back on track. I'm like,
April Fools.
did we watch the same show?
April 1st.
No, maybe you guys at home watch it and you loved it. That's awesome. That's the beautiful thing about the art, man, is it hits us all in different ways. For me, it just didn't
hits
work.
in the nuts.
Or sometimes it hits you right in the nuts. Anyway, guys, whatever you guys think, jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, when they announced the incredible news, one of the, honestly, without exaggeration, one of the biggest, most important pieces of movie news that I have ever covered in my 20 years of doing this was that they announced that they were doing Deadpool 3 with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman reprising his role as Wolverine. Other than the announcement that Disney had bought Lucasfilm, no other piece of movie news has excited me as much as this. Now, one of the big questions that then came up, and there were several, but one of them was this. What about Vanessa? And I'm not talking about Kingpin's girl. Vanessa! What about Vanessa? What about Morena Baccarin? Who is absolutely the core emotional motivation for Wade, Deadpool, in both movies that have been out. Like, she is the emotional motivation for everything that happens, whether it's to save her or whether it's grieving her. Like, she's kind of the flashpoint of everything. And she's just wonderful in it. And the on-screen chemistry between Ryan Reynolds and her is absolutely magical. And I'm a guy who does not like romances in my comic book movies. Out of like the 50 comic book movies I've seen, there have maybe been 4 that I like the romances. That's one of them. That's one of the best. And I still contend that one of the hardest moments in any comic book movie that I've ever laughed the hardest comes in the form of the phrase International Women's Day. It's a short list of moments in comic book movies that made me laugh as hard as that. She's fantastic. Going all the way back to Firefly and Serenity. She was even in V. She was in Gotham. She's always great. She's great, but I loved her as Vanessa. And there's not really been any talk about whether or not Vanessa would be in the next one. Well, now Marina Baskarin is kind of opening up. She was just on Michael Rosenbaum's really great podcast, Inside of You. And she was asked her about Deadpool 3, to which she gave what some people are interpreting as encouraging news, but others are interpreting it as discouraging news. It's funny. Some outlets are running this as Morena Baskarin gives good news on update about Deadpool 3. Then you get others like this one. Morena Baskarin casts doubt on Deadpool 3. All from the same thing. Here's what she actually said. This is her quote. She said the following. What is up with Deadpool 3? That's a really good question. I have to be very diplomatic about what I say here. I'd like to be in it. They have called me about being in it. Right now, we have not agreed on terms. And everybody's trying their best and doing their best. But it may or may not work out. I don't know. So, we have here a situation where she wants to be in the movie. They clearly want her in the movie. They have begun talking. Negotiations are going on, but they haven't come to a deal. They haven't come to a deal. This is interesting to me because understanding the cost of like even just pre-production of a movie or a show, you would think that if the script is written, they're going to start shooting this thing. The script is written. You would think that they would go, hey, before we start writing some major stuff for Vanessa in this, do you want to go and make sure that Morena's down for being in it and you guys can work out a deal? Because this has always been a thing to me. It's like, how can you be negotiating with one of the actors right up to the last second? Because if they're not in it, well, now you've got probably 15 pages of your script you got to completely change. All right. So look, for me, it's hard for me to imagine a Deadpool movie without Vanessa. Again, just because she has been the core flux of everything that's been about his motivation in the thing so far. That doesn't mean she has to be in there moving forward. It's just that when I think of the Deadpool movies, I think of this. I don't just think about Ryan. I think about Ryan and Morena. And that matchup is magical. It's great. Now, again, doesn't mean it can't be fantastic without her. Of course it can be. But I really hope they can work this out because listen, actresses these days are kind of drawing a line in the sand. We just saw recently what's the Neve Campbell in the Scream series, right? Neve Campbell, there are a lot of people in the Scream movies, but if you had to say who's the star of the Scream series, it's Neve Campbell. And she just basically said, look, they just thought I was going to say sure just because I get to be in a movie, but they were not willing to pay me what I thought I was worth. So I'm not going to be in it. And she wasn't in it. And guess what? Scream 6 worked out just fine. It did. I thought Scream 6 was quite good. I didn't think it was as good as 5, but Scream 6 worked out great. Set a box office record for the Scream franchise for a biggest opening weekend in the history of the franchise. And now maybe Marina Baskarin is saying, hey guys, listen, like, I don't know. Listen, for all I know, they're offering her $500,000 for 2 days work, which she should take. Or maybe they're offering her $50,000 to be in the movie. I just don't know. Without actually knowing what the numbers are, it's impossible to say, which side should we be? Like, are we saying Morena's being, unreasonable with how much she wants? Are we saying that the studio's being unreasonable for how much they're willing? Well, unless we know the actual dollar figure, it's hard to say. I am encouraged to hear, though, that they are still talking and negotiating. They're trying to get a deal done. Because while I will still be 100% excited for Deadpool 3 with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, 100%, and it kind of sounds like Patrick Stewart maybe too, I would really like to see it with her in there too. Will it work out? I'm not sure. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? Maybe when you think of the Deadpool movies, you don't even think about the Vanessa character. Do you think she will, at the end of the day, end up being in the movie? Do you think they'll come to a deal? Maybe you don't even want her in it. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move into our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you guys have a question for the show, whether it's about, one of the news topics or something else entirely, and you want to hear your voice on our show, go ahead and call the hotline number anytime, 24/7 at 951-268-4259. And now we got a question about, with Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse coming out, some interesting appearances in the international trailer. Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, this is Skylar from North Carolina. Like you, I'm excited for Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, but the international trailer had nods to Tobey, Andrew, and Tom. While I'm not reading too much into it, do you think there's a chance that they could appear since they've been rumored to be? Do you think after seeing the trailer this increases or decreases the chances of them popping up? Or do you think maybe there's a chance that they connect everything together actually? Thanks, and bring on the filter.
All right, Skylar, thanks a lot for calling that in, man. So for those of you who don't know what it is Skylar is specifically talking about, there is an international trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse that is out there. And it opens with the voice of Tobey Maguire reciting one of his lines from one of his Spider-Man movies. And you see the Tobey Maguire emblem, Spider-Man emblem. Then you hear one of the lines from one of Andrew Garfield's lines while playing Spider-Man, and you see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man thing. Then you hear a line by Tom Holland, and you see, by the way, like it's not animated, you see the Tom Holland logo of Spider-Man on a Spider-Man chest, right? You don't see their faces. And then it goes to Miles, and it goes into the animation, it goes into all that kind of stuff. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but movie fans tend to really like to run with things. With the smallest bit of something, we like to take that and build an entire, world-built theory around it. So, listen, Skylar's asking the question. Since we got Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire's voices in the trailer from previously read lines in other movies and just saw the logos, could that mean that maybe they have an appearance in the film? Also, could it mean that they're the ones that are going to connect everything together? All right, these are two different questions. Let's approach them differently. As far as the question goes about could their involvement in the trailer, which for all we know, they weren't even involved. They just went and recycled some old lines and put it in the trailer. But could that mean that we get the voices of Tobey, Andrew, and Tom in the movie? After all, in the trailer, there is apparently a direct reference. Miguel makes a direct reference to the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Don't even get me started on that with the deal with Doctor Strange with Spider-Man from Earth 1999999, which I've been informed is what the other multiverse places refer to our Earth as. So there was a direct reference to him. Does them being in that trailer, increase the chances we could hear their voices and maybe even see representations of them in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? I would say yes. I don't think it makes it definite, but I think it increases the chances that we could see that. I think it definitely increases the chances we could see that. So that's question number one. Well, then there's question number two, which is a much bigger leap. Because question number one, could we see their voices pop up in Across the Spider-Verse? All right. Question number two, could this mean their short 8-second voice appearance in the beginning of the international trailer, could this mean that they are back and that they will be the ones that connect everything together? That's a much bigger leap. And I will go on to say no. I don't believe that's the case. I think there's a good 50-50 chance that they can just pop up in the movie itself, but I don't think we're going to hear or see anything about, Miles, that the ultimate plot of this movie is Miles finds Tom, Andrew, and Tobey, and they were like, with all these different realities, we need to bind them all together in a spider web of destiny. And then, I don't know, maybe Madam Web then floats in. I can help with that. And then what's her name? The other one they're dealing with, Silk? Yeah, Silk. Then Silk flies in there too. And then like, we're going to merge all this in one. I don't think Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is going to do that. Now, in comic book movies, anything is possible. Particularly in animated comic book movies. I mean, you can really do anything. So is it impossible that they could do that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not impossible. I just don't think it's likely. I don't think that's the likelihood of that happening very much. So anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about that? Do you interpret any kind of deeper meaning in the fact that the international trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse has the voices of Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland all in there? Do you think that could give a little bit of an opening to bigger things? Or maybe it is just what it is, a piece of marketing for the movie. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we still need to talk about Donald Glover confirming that he is in talks to come back and play Lando Calrissian again. The why Apple buying Disney is not as far-fetched as you might think. The fact that Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, only 1 in 3 people who started watching the show actually finished it. We're going to get to all that stuff in just a second, but before we do, we're going to take just a moment and thank one of the sponsors of our show here today, the good folks over at HelloFresh. We want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. And there's no worries if you're not a pro in the kitchen. HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few steps. You'll be feeling like Gordon frickin' Ramsay in no time. And guys, look, we're always looking for more ways to save
save money. HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% cheaper than takeout. I've told you guys before, Ann and I love using HelloFresh. Not only is it really easy to put together fantastic looking and tasting meals, but it's also a lot of fun, and you get this really great sense of accomplishment when you're looking at this prepared dish that you've made with your own hands. So go to HelloFresh.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 for 50% off, plus your first box ships free. That's HelloFresh.com/Campea50 and using the promo code Campea50 for 50% off your first box ships free. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
And thank you to our friends at HelloFresh for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. Remember, guys, when you check out and support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So if you go down to the description of this video, you'll find links and promo codes for the sponsors of today's show. And thank you again to HelloFresh. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this next one here, shall we? And this one's kind of interesting. You know, when they announced that they were doing Solo, a Star Wars story, I was the first one, and probably the first time in my life, I said, why? Nobody's asking for a Solo movie, particularly of a young Han Solo, especially when we just had the Han Solo in Harrison Ford in a Star Wars movie just yesterday. Nobody's asking for this. Well, they decided they want to make it anyway. And they went ahead and made it. And of course, the movie had a good amount of drama attached to it. Lord Miller, speaking of Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, Lord Miller were, of course, brought on. I love Lord Miller, but this one was their bad. I mean, they agreed to make a certain movie, and then the studio found out they were making a completely different movie. And so they left the project. Ron Howard came in and actually salvaged it pretty damn good, because even though I don't think this was a movie they ever should have made, Solo actually ended up being a pretty darn good movie. It's not the greatest Star Wars, but I thought it was a quite enjoyable little space adventure movie. I liked it a lot. And one of the highlights in it was Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, playing Lando. Getting somebody to play a role that Billy D. Williams played is not an easy task. But I'll tell you what, I thought Glover did a magnificent job. Playing a younger version of that character. I remember I was watching an interview with Donald Glover, and he said, you know, right before he started shooting, he went and had dinner with Billy D. Williams. And Billy D. Williams says, Billy D's just telling me all these stories about a bunch of different things. So I finally interrupted and said, so Billy, like, what do I need to do to really embody Lando? And he just said, just be charming. And that's it. That's the only advice he gave him. And you know what? He took that advice and he ran with it. Now, of course, despite the fact that Solo was actually quite a good movie, it was the first straight up, legit Star Wars live action flop. It did not do well. And that doesn't even have anything to do with all the extra expense that they had to pay to kind of reshoot a bunch of the movie. It was just a flop. It just was. And so even though the Solo movie set up several story threads that they clearly had the intention of turning that into a franchise, despite the fact that the Kasdans have often said they would love to go back and revisit, despite the fact that there was even a pretty good Twitter campaign. What was the hashtag for that again? Make Solo 2 happen, or something along those lines. Despite all that, it looked very unlikely, and is still very unlikely, that they'll ever go back when there's so many different Star Wars stories to tell. Why would you go back and make a sequel to one that was the only legitimate financial flop in the franchise industry, in the franchise's history, when you could just make new ones? But one of the things that people still talked about a lot was Donald Glover as Lando. And we have heard whispers over the past couple of years that, hey, Disney is still interested in doing that. Kathleen Kennedy said herself, she kind of answered a question about Donald Glover, said, we're still talking, all that kind of stuff, but we just kind of dismissed that. Well, Donald Glover just did an interview with GQ. And in it, they brought up the question about Lando Calrissian. And he not only says that he really wants to play Lando again, he confirms that they are indeed in talks about it. This is the quote that we got from him. He said this: Donald Glover says, I would love to play Lando again. It is a fun time to be him. We're talking about it. You only get so much, so I am not interested in doing anything that's just going to be a waste of time or just a paycheck. I'd much rather spend time with people that I enjoy. So it just has to be the right thing, which I think it could be. Lando is definitely somebody I'd like to hang out with. All right. This is interesting because this isn't just, a lot of times we'll talk about stories. Did you hear such and such an actor says they'd like to be in such and such movie? Like, yeah, newsflash, actor wants paycheck. Not a big deal. But not only is Donald Glover coming out and saying, I'd really love to play Lando again, which is a safe thing to say because you never actually have to do it. But not only does he say he'd love to play Lando again, he says, we are talking about it. Him and Lucasfilm, him and Kathleen Kennedy, him and the folks at Disney. They are talking about him doing more Lando. Now, despite the fact that, I thought making Solo was a bad idea, I still like the movie. And despite the fact that I don't think you can do another Solo movie, I think you can roll the dice with a Donald Glover-led Lando series. Whether that is a Disney Plus series, because heavens knows it can't be any worse than the Book of Boba Fett, or whether it's a standalone movie. I mean, I don't know. Or maybe they just gone too much into the characters we already know thing. I don't know. But I'm going to ask, actually, Taylor, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. If you had to set an over-under number for the chances that we actually get, after hearing what Donald Glover had to say, that we actually get a Lando, whether it's a series on Disney Plus or a movie, what would you say the chances are that it actually happens?
Right now, maybe like a 45%. I'm really torn about what I want too, because on one hand, I love Donald Glover, sorry, my bad. And I loved his portrayal of Lando, but I also would like a series away from the characters we've already seen, not a prequel, not, Lando, not Han Solo, just something completely different. So I'm really torn on what I want, but I think we're about 45% right now, so we'll see.
What about you, Jonathan? What do you think the chances are that we actually get a Lando series or movie?
I'd say probably less than what Taylor just said. You said what, 45? Because it seems like he doesn't want to just do it to do it.
Right.
And I don't know how hyped Disney is. They're not really greenlighting a lot.
Yeah, they're pacing things out now.
I feel like if he's going to be super picky about, because it's not just his character, it's not just about being charming. What's the story behind it, and how does that further the galaxy and the overall story that they're trying to push right now? I just feel like, well, we're talking, there's interest, but I don't think it's likely.
I should tell you this story, just if we're talking about Donald Glover. Donald Glover is what, other than Tom Hanks and maybe the Jonas Brothers right now, one of Anne's favorite celebrities is Donald Glover, is 100% Donald Glover. And we were at a premiere, and we were sitting in the theater already, and they had on the screen the red carpet that was happening outside. And we saw Donald Glover on the screen, and it must have been on a delay, because walking down the aisle and then turning into our aisle and coming down and sitting like one person, only Palm Clementif was sitting between me and Donald Glover, with Anne on the other side of me. And to this day, my wife's pinned tweet on her Twitter is, I sat 3 seats down from Donald Glover at the Black Panther premiere last night, so basically we just had our first date. So that is that is Anne's. By the way, you should go and follow my wife, Anne. She's one of the world's foremost experts on project management. Doctrinal candidate at USC right now, my wife, Anne Campea. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Donald Glover says he would love to play Lando again, and he is talking with Lucasfilm about doing just that. What kind of project do you think it could be? What chances would you give it of it actually happening? Whatever you guys think, go ahead and jump on down in the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's go. Let's get into this. It is game day.
Game day.
Mario Brothers is now out and in theaters. We went to, guys, honestly, I cannot remember how long it's been since I've been to a midnight screening. It's because they just don't do them anymore. They moved them from midnight up to like 7 a.m., but this one is like, woo, went all the way back to 12:01 a.m. on the day it came out. Unbelievable. Went to a midnight screening. Could not believe how many kids were there. At a midnight screening. on a school. Is it a school night or does
might be
grade school have spring
I think
break?
it's spring
I
break.
think it's
It
spring break.
depends because some kids are in, some are out.
Okay, well there you go. Good reason for it. But man, there were like little kids, and for a midnight screening in Ontario Mills, California, my goodness, it was packed. It was packed, and people were cosplaying it up and all this kind of stuff. And listen, the audience we watched it with, they were having a good time.
Yeah.
They were having a good time. Every time some kind of cameo or Easter egg or musical notes, that was big, was the musical notes. You would hear the whole audience go, yeah, or all that kind of stuff, right?
There's some deep cuts in there that I flew
There
over
were some
my head.
really deep cuts.
Yep.
Because there were even moments where something would happen on screen and you hear like a bunch of people in the audience go, yeah. And I'm like,
And I'm like, what happened?
what was it? I grew up playing these games. I had no idea what it was they were oohing and ahhing with. All right. So what did we think about the Super Mario Brothers movie? Here's my basic 2 cents. And we also put up our right out of the theater reaction that you can find on the channel right now. But to expand on that, it's basically this. This movie is quite enjoyable. I had a very good time watching it. It had all the things that you were really wanting it to have. Nostalgia, a lot of great things, those Leonardo DiCaprio moments where you're recognizing this stuff. And it just, my wife, Ann, I kid you not, on 2 separate occasions, as I turned to my left to look at Ann, she had tears coming down her face.
I noticed that too.
Yeah, she was so
I was
happy.
like, why are you crying?
It made her so happy watching this, right? Like she was just in tears watching this stuff, and like you could hear it in the audience and all that kind of stuff. And all that was there. The music is fantastic. The voice performances, I was afraid about a couple of them. I actually ended up enjoying the voice performances a lot. All the references, the way they tied different elements of the different games into their story, all that was great and enjoyable, and I had a good time. In a thumbs up and thumbs down world, Super Mario Brothers for me is a double thumbs up. That said, I can't help but compare it a little bit to the Lego movie, which the Lego movie was another movie that had a lot of those things. The nostalgia of playing with these things, the types of creativity we would use as children, making Lego blocks and all that kind of stuff. But within the process of making the Lego movie, they put in a really compelling and emotional story. There was so much beautiful story in that. What really came down to is the movie was about Will Ferrell and his son. And that whole notion of trying to capture something and instead of letting it grow, develop, and even rediscovering that part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that had imagination and awe and wonder. There was a really good story in the Lego movie. And unfortunately, that is not in the Super Mario Brothers movie. And I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that, again, we had 2 directors that have never directed, or like the only one of the 2 of them have ever directed a feature film, and that feature film was Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So I don't know if it had something to do with that. I don't know if they were just solely focused on getting as many of those great moments in there. Like this thing, when he goes into that castle, when Luigi finds that castle, oh man, people were so happy. They got all that stuff that was going on when the Shy Guys showed up, the cheers. Maybe they're just focused on giving those great moments for the audience. And look, at the end of the day, I say this all the time, movies are experiential events. They're experiential events. And at the end of the day, when I walk out of a movie, I'm not asking, were the jokes funny? I'm not asking, was the story deep? My first question I ask myself is, did I have a good experience? Did this movie deliver a positive experience? And there are certainly things you can put into your movie that will enhance the chances of giving you a better experience. A really good story is one of them. But none of those elements are absolutely essential, right? Because you might miss 1 or 2 big elements, like a good underlying story, but have a lot of the others that still manages to deliver a good experience. So, hey, listen, I've been saying this too. I've been saying that I believe that Super Mario Brothers, the movie, would be the #1 box office movie of the year. But I also said, I have to get back to you on that until I see it. Because I don't know if it's going to be good enough to do that, all that kind of stuff. I said, all the things being even, Super Mario Brothers will end up being the #1 box office movie of the year. Now that I've seen it, I can tell you it will not. It's just not good enough that it's going to, number one, get people raving to their friends to go and see it, and number two, returning to the theaters themselves. I mean, obviously, there'll be some people who will, but returning to the theaters themselves to see it 4 or 5 times. So, I no longer believe after seeing that it'll be, but I still enjoy it. I think you should see it too. Ray, you saw it with me there last night.
Hold on, I had a question before I go into that. Just like Uncharted, and remember we saw that PlayStation Productions the first time we saw it.
Yeah.
Was this Nintendo's first real dig at Hollywood? Because we saw that Nintendo intro.
Yeah,
that's the first time I've ever seen
But remember,
it.
they're not the production studio.
Yeah, but we still saw that little thing in the beginning.
This is the first time, because Illumination, behind the Minions movies and stuff like that, they're the company that made the movie, but it's in partnership with Nintendo. This is the first time Nintendo has dipped their toe into the feature film market since the utter disaster of the Bob Hoskins Super Mario Brothers movie back in, when did that even come out?
80-something.
92?
80-something.
92, 93?
Oh, I thought it was 80s, but
You know what? It probably is the 80s. It's probably even older than that. So this is the first time they've done it.
It's a good. If this is the first thing they branded for a long time in Hollywood, it's good.
It's a good freshman effort.
The length of the movie, I enjoyed.
Yeah, 1:30 minute, an hour and a half.
The animation was
great.
Phenomenal.
Animation was fantastic.
You got views of Mario that you never thought you would see. Even when 64 came out and you got that 3D Mario, you saw like points of views from his vantage point.
Right.
That were really cool. When we gave our review last night, I was really tired. I mean, we got
it was 2:15 in the morning.
2:30 a.m. I found myself yawning on the back end, and maybe I discredited that. When I woke up today, I said, man, I really like Mario. So it was a good movie. It's very nostalgia driven.
Hugely nostalgic.
It's going to make all its money this weekend. All its money is going to be done this weekend. There's not going to be anything, because everyone's going to go see it who loves Mario.
But here's the thing. Unlike Dungeons and Dragons, which opened last week and then had Mario opening after it, I don't think there's anything huge opening next week, is there?
I don't
Taylor,
think,
if you can look that up.
I also don't think we're gonna get like a 70-some% drop like Ant-Man.
No,
because
no.
here's the thing though, there's the fans, but kids, man.
No, the kids are going to line up for this.
They're going to keep coming. They may even want to go back or take their friends. So I think maybe a 50% drop, but not 60, 70.
So where this movie works for kids is it's really short.
Yeah,
it hits all the
it's
happy
colorful,
feels,
it's funny,
and all the kids in our screening
loved it.
It seemed like they're awake by the time it ended, which
Yeah.
was great to me. Meaning kids are going to eat this stuff up.
What do you got, Taylor?
So next week on the 14th, there are 3 movies opening, all 3 of which I'm very excited for, but I don't think they're going to compete with Mario. We have Renfield, The Pope's Exorcist, and Mafia Mama.
I totally forgot about that movie.
Coming up next week.
I totally forgot about that. That's
Kill Bill.
What's that?
No.
I thought it was the Kill
Tony
Bill.
Collette.
Tony Collette. Thank you.
Sorry.
I am so torn on that. There were scenes I'm like, okay, I get what they're going for, and then there's scenes where I'm like,
I am interested in that. I am super excited though for, what was the first one you mentioned
Renfield.
there? I am very excited for Renfield. But anyway, so I think you're right. I think Mario is number 1 at the box office again next weekend.
Okay.
I don't think any of those will catch it, but how much of a drop will it take? Not really sure. Anyway, guys, question is for you. Did you have a chance to see the Mario Brothers movie? If so, what did you think of it? It's not getting the best critic reviews, and I can see why, but I enjoyed it, man. It gave me a really delightful time at the theaters. Not as good as I was hoping it would be. I don't think it's going to be the biggest box office movie of the year anymore, but I think you should go see it. Anyway, whatever you guys think about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into this here, shall we? You know, a little while ago, there were some rumors and whispers going around that there could be some low-level discussions going on about the possibility or feasibility, maybe, just an exploration of the question of, could Apple buy Disney? Could they buy Disney? And that question, when it came up a while ago, it sparked a lot of think pieces that got put online, some of which making a case about why Apple could buy Disney, many writing opposite, saying why it really doesn't make any sense for Apple to buy Disney. But a new article in the Puck by their analysts over there that they've brought up actually does kind of make a case about why this rumor is continuing to persist and why it very well could end up being the case. Now, I'm going to just touch on a couple of highlights because this is like an 8 or 9 page article. I'm just going to touch on a couple of the points that they made, and then we're going to focus more on 1 or 2 key concepts. Key concepts. All right. So one of the things that we won't go to that just yet.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that they, do mention is the fact that Disney, now that Bob Iger's back, Bob Iger has inherited a Disney company that is not in as good a shape as it was when he left it. And they're not easy problems to fix. And they point out that their stock price is just hovering a little bit above what their 5-year low was. And, it's a little bit of an uncertain future right now, at least as uncertain as it could be for a Disney company, right? And they point out all the various different, board maneuverings and the financial realities of it and kind of what some of the key needs are for that. Another thing they kind of bring up is the fact that, guys like Bob Iger are now looking at legacy. Not just Bob Iger, Tim Cook over at Apple is also looking at legacy. Because not only is Disney in a little bit of a spot, Apple's in a little bit of a spot. Because Apple, which was like Steve Jobs' utopian vision of technology in the future, Apple had always been this thing about every couple of years introducing something that was revolutionary. Whether it was the freaking little grapefruit iMac. God, I still remember the first time I saw that computer, man. I fell in love. I think everybody loved those. That computer saved Apple. Those freaking great blueberry iMacs, that computer single-handedly saved that company. And iPod, right? Then they revolutionized music with the iPod. Then the iPhone changed everything about how we look at phones. Then the iPad, which I have several very good Android tablets, but ain't nothing, no tablet comes close to my iPad. Even though I am an Android guy, nothing comes close to my iPad as far as tablets go. But the reality is, they point out in this article, it's been almost a decade since Apple's really done anything that has truly made a big splash. And all that is true. Now, a couple more things to keep in mind here before we get into the real meat of this is the fact that Apple, for the first time ever, is getting into the entertainment business. They launched Apple TV Plus, and whereas some people thought it was just going to kind of be a hobby, a side project for Apple, Apple has shown that they are willing to go all in when it comes to developing their entertainment division. Not only did they recently announce a commitment of $1 billion a year to spend on theatrically released films, but they're hovering around a $7 billion annual budget for overall content creation. Now, I know Apple's rich. I don't care how rich you are. If you're committing $7 billion to something, you're all in. So they are all in becoming a true, legit entertainment company. And the other truth that the article points out is this: it is way less expensive and way less risky to go out and acquire an existing company that is already doing it and doing it well than really trying to dig in your heels for 10 years to try to build your thing itself. And so for Apple, the article makes the case, if you are dead serious about becoming a big player in the entertainment industry, you can look at this long, arduous road of trying to really build and develop your own brand and, try to compete with the stalwarts of like Netflix and HBO and all that kind of stuff that are out there. Or you can say, you know what, Disney, they've got the infrastructure. They've got the history. They've got the IP. They've got the technology back end. They've got the expertise. They've got it all. We can just buy them. But that's where we get into the real interesting stuff of the article about really why Apple could be very, very serious about wanting to buy Disney and why Apple very, very easily could buy Disney. And it's a matter of an ecosystem. Both Disney and Apple, the article mentions, are built on ecosystems, not individual products. Disney wants you to get connected with the Disney brand. They want you to go on Disney cruises and come to Disneyland and watch your favorite Disney princesses and then watch your favorite franchise. I mean, Disney has created an entertainment ecosystem with Disney Plus out there now and then tying in their movies to Disney Plus and everything. They have built an ecosystem that people get into and kind of dwell there. Apple is the same thing. They are an ecosystem company. They get you hooked by getting you on an iPhone. And then they're like, well, you know, if you had an iPad, you could sync it with your iPhone. You can even get your text messages on your iPad. Oh, all right, then you get an iPad. Then you know, if you got an iPhone, you might as well get a Mac computer because of the way they connect with each other and the way they work together and blah, blah. And all right, yeah, okay. And well, you know what? You got an iPhone, you got an iPad, you got a Mac. Why don't you complete the circle of sucker and go ahead and get a Mac Apple Watch? And then you go, oh, okay, I'll do that too. And sure enough, I do, because of the way it seamlessly works with my iPhone and all that kind of stuff. They are an ecosystem company. Disney's an ecosystem company. Apple's an ecosystem company. But this is where it gets really, really interesting for Apple about why they'd want to buy Disney. Listen to this. This is a quote from the article. Now we can bring it up. Here's another stat for you, says the article. 45% of Disney consumers, not users, consumers, people who actually spend money on Disney stuff, are under 18 years old. To put this in further perspective, in a $400 billion annual market for smartphones, every 1% that you move your market capitalization, every 1% that you move the needle in your direction is worth $4 billion a year. And that's just from phone sales, not to say anything of all the extra stuff that's in the ecosystem. Worth $4 billion a year. And that's just from phone sales, say nothing of the downstream effects of bringing people into your ecosystem. If you could move the needle 5%, that's $20 billion a year that you could pay for Disney in 5 years alone. You could buy Disney and have it pay for itself in 5 years alone, just if you can get that to move. Just if you can get that to move. Because this is the thing. The way Apple could integrate with Disney productions are more than the colors of the rainbow. Imagine a united brand featuring the products in shows and products with a level of shamelessness that would make the Ted Lasso producers blush. Every deal and mega hit from Disney, and even in its doldrums, I would still bet that Disney still has to have as many as anyone in the years ahead, would be a glimmer into the Apple halo. All right, before we go any further, here's what they're basically suggesting. The smartphone market is almost completely saturated, right? But the article points out, when you run out of adults to buy phones, every year there are brand new adults. Children grow up and become adults. And that is where your growth market is for getting people into your ecosystem. If 45% of Disney's consumers are under 18, again, these are people who spend money, not just viewers. If 45% of Disney's consumers are under 18, and you can buy Disney, and at all your theme parks have iPhones everywhere, and all your Disney movies, everybody's using an iPad or checking their Apple Watch or using their Apple Health Fitness app or whatever kind of stuff. You are now developing future consumers for your Apple ecosystem. And like the article said, if you can even move the needle 1%, that's $4 billion a year. Okay, so we understand why Apple would want to buy Disney, right? They're dead serious about the entertainment industry. They've already shown they're willing to put up a lot of money for it. It's far more efficient for them just to buy Disney to do it. And by buying Disney, they are creating a future well of revenue for their Apple ecosystem by getting the younger audiences that are already part of Disney's audience. It's brilliant for Apple to do it. Now you might ask the question, could Apple do it? Because Disney's a big company. Well, they go on to talk about this. Laura Martin said that the companies are worth 20% more together than apart. Okay, let's pause on that for a second. If you're Apple, let's just say you're Apple and you're worth $10. And Disney is worth $10. Together, you would think you'll be worth combined $20. The analysts are saying if these two companies merged, a $10 company and a $10 company would suddenly be worth $24. 20% more if they're combined than they are their individual pieces. Anyway, Laura Martin said that the companies are worth 20% more together than apart. With a $2.6 trillion market cap, that is what Apple is worth. $2.6 trillion. If Apple stock goes up just 7%, that bump covers the entire cost of buying Disney right there. To put it another way, Disney's market cap is $182 billion. What is, my math is bad. What is that? 20 times more? 10 times more?
About.
So yeah, we'll go 10 times
Between
more.
15, 18,
15 times more. Yeah, Apple's worth 15 times what Disney is. They could buy and sell Disney 15 times. Anyway, Disney's market cap is $182 billion. Apple at this moment has $165 billion just in cash sitting in a piggy bank. It could fund the acquisition out of its piggy bank, soaring interest rates be damned. They literally just have the money in the pocket right now that they could just pull out. And Tim Cook literally could just reach into his pocket right now and say, oh, how much are you worth? All right, here you go. And just buy it like that. I'll tell you what, I am not sitting here saying that Apple is definitely buying Disney. But if you don't believe that there is some real strategic, analytical data and philosophical approaches to the business at play here, that absolutely makes it a possibility, I think you're being naive. If you don't, if you don't think this could actually be a possibility. And Bob Iger could very well be brought back to just position the company to be as worth as much as possible and make the shareholders of Disney stupid rich with an Apple buyout. Again, I am not saying that they're going to do it. All right. I'm not. But I'm just saying, man, it is far more a possibility than I think a lot of people are admitting. Anyway, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Could you see a time in a day where maybe Apple buys Disney? And by the way, one of the things a lot of people bring up when you say that is the FCC will never allow it. Yeah, they're creating monopolies. No, not necessarily. Because Apple, while they are getting into the entertainment space, they are not an entertainment company. It's the reason why AT&T was able to buy Warner Brothers without any problem. Because if it was one major entertainment company, like there was more problems with Disney buying Fox because they're both in the same space and creating monopolies. Apple, while they have an entertainment division, they are not yet one of the major players. They are primarily a technology company. And while there would definitely be hurdles and obstacles, it wouldn't be as big as you might think. Again, I point back to AT&T's acquisition of WB. Anyway, what do you think about this, guys? What do you think the chances are? Good idea, bad idea, terrible idea, great idea. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the TV shows that I'll tell you straight up was my most anticipated show for a couple of years was Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Ever since they announced that show and that Amazon was going to be financing it and the money that they were putting into it for at least 2 years leading up to that show, I said easily my most anticipated show is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And I think it's going to be the best show that comes out. Of course, we had House of the Dragon coming out, and I believed in House of the Dragon, but I said, yeah, The Rings of Power is going to be better than House of the Dragon and all that kind of stuff. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. House of the Dragon was clearly the better show. I mean, it's all subjective. If you believe Rings of Power is the better show, you and I have no beef. That's great. I personally thought the House of the Dragon was clearly the better show. I still liked Rings of Power. I did. But I did not like it to the degree of 2 years of super high hype and excitement that I had for that show. It had some real good strong points, had some real low points. Now, on one hand, we know that the show was very successful for Amazon because they gave out the numbers that, remember, when it comes to streaming services, the most important statistic that streaming services had is first click. What first click is what is the first thing a person watches when they sign up to your streaming service? That is the most valuable piece of information that all the streaming services have. Okay, we had 100 people sign up and 73 of them, like 100 people signed up yesterday and 73 of them, the very first thing they went to watch was Stranger Things. Okay, that tells you that Stranger Things got them to come and sign up for your service if you're Netflix.
Which is why Peacock sent me an email that said, look at all of our true crime documentaries.
See? Come on in. The water's fine. They all do it. And it's their number one piece of data that they get. Amazon released data that showed that their first click stuff, they got a lot of subscribers because of the Lord of Rings, Rings of Power. And on that level, the show was very successful for them. However, there's another analytic that just came out that does not paint as rosy of a picture. And that is completion rate. According to stories, the completion rate, and that is the number of people who started watching the show and actually finished the show, actually watched it through to the conclusion of the season finale, was only about 1 in 3. Little bit higher, 37%. 1 in 3, roughly. To put that in context, I believe the Stranger Things completion rate was hovering around 60%. I know that, the Arcane, my favorite animated show of all time. It had like a 62, 63% completion rate, whatever. And that's not considered great either. 37% is terrible. Now, that doesn't take away the success that Amazon had with First Click. Like, a lot of people signed up for Amazon Prime internationally and around the world strictly because they wanted to watch Rings of Power. Again, on that level, big success. But here's where it becomes a problem for you. That's great for season 1. What happens with season 2 when nearly 2/3 of the people who decided, yeah, I want to give this Lord of the Rings show a shot, I want to watch this Rings of Power, when nearly 2 out of every 3 who did that at some point before the finale said, I'm out. I'm out. Nearly 2 out of every 3 said, I'm done. I'm tapping out. I can't take it anymore. This is enough. That haircut is abysmal. I cannot watch it. Freaking Tolkien Eminem wannabe sitting out there in the wilderness. Nope, I'm out. 2 out of every 3 people who sat down to watch this show tapped out of it. That is a horrible statistic.
Considering everyone has Prime too, so it's like right there. Like, it's not like, oh yeah, I had to cancel the service. I mean, a lot of people
you signed up for it. Even the people who signed up for it. I mean, you signed up, you got it. So finish it out. And now listen, again, there are things about the show that I really, really, really loved. Like the relationship between Elrond and Durin. I could have watched, seriously, you could have made the whole show just about the two of them. You could have changed Rings of Power to, the Winds of Middle-earth, the Elrond and Durin story. I mean, and I would have been all about it. I mean, that was clearly the singular best thing about this show. I loved those characters together. And then they had some weaknesses. Some weaknesses that hit other people bigger than it hit me. Again, I still enjoy the show. I still liked it, but it was not as good as I wanted it to be. And for a lot of people, it was bad enough that 2 out of every 3 said I'm out. And that brings up a problem for Amazon because fantastic, you had a great first click rate with season 1. You ain't going to get that for season 2 now. Season 2 is going to be a very, very different story. Because when 2 out of every 3 couldn't even finish the first season, what's going to happen with the second? And you've already spent the money. They are in on this franchise for billions. They are in this franchise for billions. Ray.
I mean, I think a problem not only with Lord of the Rings, this Rings of Power, is with any big IP address from the past, is you'll always get the people who love it to watch. It's the newer kids or whatever, to bring them in. It's a hard formula to figure out right now. Just because, like there's kids that are probably skip this show. I mean, or any other IP that we love, like at our age, you know what I mean? Like
House of the Dragon didn't seem to have any problem bringing in
House
the
of the
audience.
Dragon is it's different.
another level.
It's a little different. HBO pulls you in from the start for any show.
I mean, yeah, they just had it on another level.
I just think of these older, like Lord of the Rings, even the Marvel stuff, like Fantastic. All of them have to figure out a way to, because you could always kind of bank on the people who love the stuff already to watch.
Sure, but
it's
here's
just
the problem.
newer stuff that they want to get in, and they're having a hard time getting those people in.
But here's the problem. This is the problem. This is where they're really screwed. It doesn't matter if you find a way to get them in if 2 out of every 3 of them are going to tap out before the show even gets to its conclusion. Right? I mean, you can get all the first-time viewers to come in you want. If your show's bad enough that 2 out of every 3 are going to tap out, it doesn't matter how many first-time viewers you bring in. I mean, it worked for season 1, it counts. And for season 1, they figured it out. A lot of people came in and watched the show. Great. But almost 63% of them ditched before it finished.
And do you remember our first reaction to the first episode? That wasn't really, hey, I'm going to come next week and watch this.
Dude, I nearly tapped out because remember, I went to go see the first 2 episodes in theaters, right? They dropped the first 2 episodes in special theater screenings about a week before the show came out. And I remember saying when I came out of it, if it was only 1 episode, like if I didn't watch 2 episodes back to back, because I thought the second episode was much better than the first, but if they had only showed us 1 episode, I would have tapped out of it after 1 episode because the first episode was not good. It was not good. I thought the second episode improved, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay on it. But yeah, I mean, they didn't come out of the gate strong. They did not finish strong.
Yeah, they got it.
I'll tell you what, they got real problems now, man.
Yes, they do.
Because they've got the money in this already. They got season 2, and 2/3 of the audience don't want to come back and watch it again. Now, I'm willing to bet that there is going to be a portion of the audience that ditched on season 1 to go, I'll give season 2 a shot. Because I've done that before. I've done that where I didn't like a certain season of something. I go, you know what, though? I'll give it another shot to see if it improved in between seasons. So you get some of those. You'll get some of those. But they are royally jacked.
They're only going to come back, a bulk of them, if word of mouth gets out.
I agree. 100%.
Season 2 is dope or whatever, like that. And
you know what?
I'll
The
be
same
like,
thing
okay.
happened with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, right? Because there were a lot of people who did not like the way Game of Thrones ended. I did, but there were a lot of people who didn't. And a lot of people swore online, I'm not going to watch that new Game of Thrones show. They screwed up the ending of the best. I'm not going to watch that. Well, guess what? A lot of them did, but even the ones that didn't, when word came out, like to your point, Ray, when word started getting out that, hey guys, this House of the Dragon show fucking rules. Then people were like, they start hearing their head, dun, 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 and they're like, all right. And then they go and check it out, and they saw that as fabulous, right? Yeah. You're right. It's going to take something like that, I think, to bring a lot of those people who tapped out back into season 2. But can they do it? I don't know.
What's funny is that House of the Dragon is so good to me that if they blatantly put a Starbucks cup in this next season, like right in front, like on top of a dragon's head, I wouldn't care. The Lord of the Rings really is on eggshells right now.
Absolutely it is.
So they got to hopefully shape things up. Hopefully more people will tune in and finish it.
Here's how good House of the Dragon is compared to Lord of the Rings. All right. Often, I have to twist Ray's arm to come over for watching certain episodes of shows that we're going to cover. Like, Ray, just come on. We got to watch it. It's good if we watch it. And I got so much to do. I'm so tired. No, just come over. And, but for House of the Dragon, that didn't happen.
Yeah, we're getting barbecues. I'm there.
Yeah, Ray is like, I'm going to go Ray's calling me. I'm going to go pick up barbecue. What do you want? And like that's how good House of the Dragon is.
It just hit me a little different than Lord of the Rings. That's the problem with that too. I often ask myself with this Rings of Power, if we weren't doing an after show,
Would we have still watched
would
it?
I have kept watching it?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure,
Rings of
to be
Shadow.
honest. I don't know. There's a couple episodes where I was like, I might just wait for the whole thing to finish up and just binge the whole thing. So there's probably a lot of people who did that and just didn't go back.
Yep, 100%. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think? This is a staggering number. Almost 2/3 of everybody who started watching Rings of Power did not get all the way through it. That could be a real problem for Amazon moving forward. Maybe you don't think it's that big of an issue and everybody's just going to come right back to it. I don't know. Whatever you guys think, whether you loved the series, hated the series, or kind of indifferent to it, whatever your thoughts about this are, jump down to the comments section below and leave those thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, we are now going to take the rest of our time here today to go over and start answering your questions that you guys have been sending in. But before we do, we want to take just a quick moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, Ryan Reynolds' own Mint Mobile.
We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea.
And thank you again to our friends at Mint Mobile, my mobile service provider, for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with that down, let's finish off our day here by taking your live questions, shall we? Jonathan, what do we got?
DJ Stevie writes, the WWE drama is going to make one heck of a movie. Vince drags the company down, caught doing bad things. Steph and Triple H take over, take the company to new heights. Vince comes back, sells to UFC, and ruins morale backstage. Fans in uproar. Where from here?
Yeah, it is a really strange thing because, look, I don't watch professional wrestling on any sort of regular basis. I'll watch WrestleMania every year. We just went to WrestleMania, and that's always a fun event. Whatever. But from all reports that when Vince got caught paying hush money, that seems to be a big thing going around these days. Big, powerful people getting caught paying off hush money for doing things they shouldn't have done. Naughty. So he got caught paying hush money. So he leaves creative of the company. Stephanie and Triple H take over. And from everything that I read from all the serious wrestling people, it's like the quality of product for WWE got way better. Like way better. People loved it. Then all of a sudden, Vince came back. It was understandable. Vince McMahon came back in just to help because he is the creator of everything, just to help facilitate the sale of it. And they, in a shocking move, ended up selling to UFC or UFC's parent company, Endeavor. And Vince is still going to be involved. I don't know. It's going to be very, very curious to see how that works out. But it does. You're right, man. It sounds like a movie you could make.
It sounds like he snuck in that seat right there after the sale. Like, I sat down to make the sale, and he's like, it's comfortable. I'm going to sit here.
I'm just going to stay.
A lot of the wrestlers want their release, from what I'm hearing, which is crazy.
Yeah, we'll see. Now it would have been worse if they, because remember early reports that they were going to sell to a Saudi entertainment company, and a lot of the wrestlers said we're just not going to wrestle if they sell to that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. All right, what's next?
All right, Anonymous writes, can't wait to, let me scroll down. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on A Good Person, John. One of my favorites from March, Florence and Morgan Freeman gave sensational, dare I say, Oscar-worthy performances. The movie really sticks with you.
This is one I have not watched it, and it was a busy March. And yet we talked about the trailer on the show. The trailer looked absolutely fantastic.
What's it play now? Is it theaters only?
I think it's only in theaters right now, yeah. A Good Person. Is this the one that Zach Braff? Not Zach Braff. No. Yeah, Zach Braff, right?
Is that the guy from
Scrubs.
Oh yeah, it's directed
Scrubs.
by Zach Braff.
Yeah.
And this one is the one directed by Zach Braff. Oh yeah, this is where him and Florence Pugh first hooked up. That's right. Anyway, for those of you who know, Florence Pugh and Zach Braff were an item for like a year. Anyway, or maybe it was longer than that. I can't
Don't
remember.
you talk about my Florence like
sorry about that. You're gonna have
that's
to.
pure.
Yeah, Zach, let her go. You're good. But the movie looks beautiful, and I really do want to see it. I just haven't had a chance to do it yet. All right, what's next?
All right, we've got 3 here from Andy, who writes, Riverdale is
Oh boy, here we
So
go.
I'm back.
Oh, Chris needs to be here for this.
It's time to trick you, Chris. Chris is not here today, but I'll let her know. The season 7 premiere wasn't entertainingly bad like season 7. It was boringly bad, except at the end. Apparently, ScarletWish.com couldn't melt the comet in the season 6 finale, so Jughead's girlfriend Tabitha used, I'm sure we'll get explanation here. Tabitha used her time travel superpower to reboot the timeline into 1955. Tabitha, being the literal guardian angel of Riverdale, as told by the angel Raphael last season.
I'm sorry, the angel Raphael appeared in it?
As to-
Okay.
Well, there's more. As to explore various timelines and universes to get back to their original timeline. But to do that, Jughead also has to first make the 1955 timeline's moral arc bend towards justice. However, Jughead's memories of the original timeline potentially corrupts this timeline, so he erases his memories by making out with him.
What the fuck is going on?
This is ChatGPT. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, this is what happened when ChatGPT writes your
When
script.
it takes an edible.
Oh, listen, all I remember, that first episode, that first season of Riverdale came out. And it was a pop cultural phenomenon. A lot of people got into it. A lot of people cosplaying Riverdale and all that kind of stuff. And I even thought the first season was actually pretty good. It was a simple thing. High school students that all look like they're in their early 30s, but high school students who are just worried about boning and playing football.
And there was a murder mystery, right?
And at the heart of it was a murder mystery, a simple murder mystery, right? A simple murder mystery. To time travel powers to 19 to Scout. I can't even, it's like watching the first season of How I Met Your Mother, then going abroad for about 4 years and coming back and finding out it's evolved into they're actually all aliens who eat people's brains and, do holographic projections out of their toenails. I'd be like, wait a minute, how did you get from that first season to this? It just makes my brain melt. Anyway, I wish
Well, the
Chris
writers
was here
just
for
took
this one.
notes on what you said. So.
Yeah, there you go. Now we got our finale. All right, what's next?
1955. This is like Back to the Future 2. We got to get you back to the future. Make out with yourself. All right, Sam Fisher writes, why am I really wanting the Barbie movie to have a nude shot where everyone's nips and genitals are removed? I think that would be amazing, using VFX. But with America Ferrara playing a human, is this going to be about a girl who gets isekai'd into
I have no
a
idea what that
Barbie
means.
playset?
No, I doubt that. Listen, I'm not trying to be funny. I would put a 75% chance that shot is in the movie.
But there were nipples in the trailer. Not that I was looking for them, but I did see them.
But I mean, when they did that joke about how about I stay over tonight? Why? Because we're boyfriend and girlfriend. To do what? I honestly don't know. That was like the one part of that trailer that I giggled at. But when I heard that, I instantly believed, you know what? We are probably going to get a scene where it's just all smooth. I mean, I don't know. Somehow, some way.
You could get that right now with some technology.
Yeah.
We could bring it to you first.
Is that something to do with Manscaped? I'm not sure. All right. What's next?
All right, Optimus Prime Rib writes, I feel like
I like the name.
that one hit. I feel like Barbie will either be amazing or a disaster like Tom Hooper's Cats when an auteur, Oscar caliber director took a big swing on their vision to bring an IP to life.
Listen, that we don't talk about it a lot, and for good reason. But like that Tom Hooper's Cats, because he was at that time before Cats. I don't think you'd find many serious film fans who would not say he's probably on a top 10 best directors in the world at the time. He's also directed the Oscar-winning film King's Speech that won Best Picture, won Best Actor, won a bunch of stuff. I mean, he was great. And then so he's going to do Cats, a celebrated musical. And oh boy, they're still talking about that movie. So Now we got this Barbie movie, and you've got Oscar caliber talent writing it and directing it. Greta Gerwig. I mean, it's just so a lot of people have faith in it, and for good reason. I don't think the movie will be bad. I'm just saying I didn't like the trailer. And listen, again, we've all seen bad trailers to movies that ended up being great, and great trailers to movies that ended up being bad. So I still believe the movie could be really good. I mean, it stars 2 good Canadian kids in it, and Ryan Gosling and Simu Liu. But the trailer doesn't look so good. Here's hoping Greta Gerwig pulls it off. All right, what's next?
All right, we've got A. Marcellus who writes, John, I think you and I can both agree that Babu Freak was probably the only good thing about Rise of Skywalker. Hey, I'm not sure. LOL, I would love to see that little dude species use the Force. It would be hilarious.
Listen, I'll tell you what. When they popped up, what was it, in episode 1 or 2 of Mandalorian this season? When those, like, Anne will still, I swear to God, Anne will still every once in a while randomly go to Disney Plus, put on that episode just to hear the little guy say the line, no, he's the broken. That's it. She just has to, he's the broken. And Anne dies. She just dies laughing hysterically every time that happens. They are adorable. No squeezy, no squeezy. I love those guys. Listen, I hate with a passion Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker.
I should watch it.
You should, yeah, to see what it is we're talking about. But there was more than one good thing in it. I mean, there were good elements in it. Like in my most hated of movies, I think there are some good elements. Babu Freak was definitely one of them. I think there were probably 1 or 2 other highlights, but yeah. But hey, listen, they proved it in Mandalorian. You bring those little guys back. People love those little guys. I don't know if you can do. You know what they remind me of? This is might be before some of your time. There was a show called Fraggle Rock.
Yeah.
Down at Fraggle Rock.
They remind me of the Dozers.
Oh,
yeah.
Work your cares away.
Yeah, they'd always knock over their construction sites.
Oh, yeah, and then they just go right back to building.
Yeah.
Right? Ah, the Dozers. All right, what's next?
All right. We have one from Soul here. Fandom wants a Marauder series for a long time. It feels WB doesn't listen to their audience. They should hire the Carlin brothers, people who know the lore and are connected to the fan base.
First of all, correct me if I'm wrong, are the Marauders not Marvel? Isn't that the team with, like, Mr. Sinister?
I'll look that up.
There could be a double name taking.
I mean, maybe guys in the live chat, help me out there. I thought Marauders was a Marvel thing. Anyway, let me say this. So, when you say, can you bring the question up again for me, Jonathan? When you say, fandom wants Marauders. Okay, this is one thing that I find a lot of us, and I think we've all been guilty of it. Me too. All of us, all that kind of stuff.
I only see Marvel for Marauders.
I found the definition, but I'll wait.
Okay, so we think that because me and my 5 buddies want something, we say the fans want this. No, they don't. 95% of comic book movie going audiences have never heard of the Marauders. So you can't say the fandom wants. Normally, when I or somebody else says the fandom wants, what we're really saying is me and my buddies want this, right? Me and my friends want this. And I don't think that is a particularly healthy thing. So they're not listening to the fans. You mean they're not listening? Oh, so there you go. Yeah, the one of Miss Sister. You mean they're not listening to you because ain't nobody else is asking for it. I mean, obviously some people probably are, but anyway, that's just that. But that's that. All right, what's next?
All right, we've got a $20 tip here from Mike R. Who writes, "Hey guys, I'm an accountant and a new viewer.
Oh, thank you, Mike.
Coming to the end of a very long tax season, I just wanted to thank you all for spending almost every afternoon of the last few months with me. Keep it up and bring on the filthy. I used to be an accountant."
Thank you. So you were an accountant, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. I wasn't a certified public accountant, but I was an accountant. I had my degrees in accounting. That's why.
Because I believe the first time, if I'm not mistaken, the first time you came in,
the downfall of your story,
to meet with me and Dennis, because Dennis, this is back when Dennis and I were still we were at AMC.
Yeah, I was in the closet.
And we were looking for somebody to help with production. That was the first time you came in. And I remember you talking about you got your background in accounting and stuff like that, and you've worked in all this kind of stuff, but production is what you really want to do. I still remember that. How many years ago was that now?
It was 2014. So
Almost 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Crazy. And yet here we still are. All right. Anyway, Mike R., thank you so much for supporting us to that level, man. And yeah, listen, I talk to my accountant at least once a week, and believe me, I know. By the way, you know what? My accountant's wife, our accountant, his wife is one of the stars of the Killers of the Flower Moon with Leonardo DiCaprio coming out. Yeah, good for
Maybe
him.
get some exclusive.
Well, he told me he's going to have her come in. I mean, I'd be more than happy. Mike, I've been working with my accountant for like 5 years now. He's absolutely fantastic. Anyway, because I got Aaron turned on to him. I got Rob turned on to him. Like I like all my friends now, they're like, he's their accountant too. Because he specializes in like entertainment accounting too. He's fantastic. Anyway, all right, what's next?
All right, we've got Ian here. First ever super chat of any kind, anywhere.
Nice.
Thank you. Games to adapt to shows or movies. King's Quest and or Quest for Glory.
I'm not familiar with Quest for Glory.
Yeah, I'm not, but King's Quest, yes.
Yes, King's Quest. I mean, that could be fun. I don't know if it was ever popular or
What
not.
kind of game was that? Was that
It's
like a strategy game?
early role-playing kind of game, yeah. But like on computer, yeah, PC.
All right, I love the suggestions. All right, what's next?
All right, we've got Anonymous here. Pixar's Elemental would have been more visually interesting if it took place not in modern times. Make it take place in the 50s or 20s. The Emoji Movie was modern times. Sing, Zootopia, and onward. Luca did a perfect job. So
Yeah.
I guess he's saying set it in a different time there.
But I mean, I don't know, because remember, I think once in a while doing something like what Luca did, and I didn't love Luca, to be honest with you, but I liked it. It was perfectly charming. But every once in a while, that's the right move for that story. I think most of the time you want to tell your stories in contexts that most people identify with. Particularly what kids will identify with having it set in a world that kind of looks like theirs in a way. So maybe it could have been visually a little bit interesting, but you'd have to ask the question, what would be the purpose of having it set, say, in the 1880s? What would be the purpose of having it set in the 1950s? And if you can't really come up with a truly important narrative purpose about why it would need to be in a different time era, then I think defaulting to what looks like our modern time is probably a better context. But again, it's hard to say without having seen the movie, because we may all watch the movie and go, you know what? This story would have been a perfect thing set in like the 1930s. Maybe, or maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. It's an interesting point of view though, man. All right, what's next?
All right. Anonymous again writes, Polynesian culture is so full of stories the rest of the world doesn't know. I'd rather have a new movie to learn about the culture than a remake of a film that came out 7 years ago.
Here's the thing, Anonymous. Obviously, we're talking about Moana. That the fact that, for those of you who missed it, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Bob Iger both confirmed that Disney is working on a live-action Moana, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will reprise his role as Maui. But here's the thing. Your statement, let me read it again, bring it up here. So your statement in saying that Polynesian culture is so full of stories the rest of the world, I'd rather have a new one of those than a remake of something before. Okay, that's fine, but it makes an assumption that if they just didn't make a Moana remake, they would have made another movie about Polynesian culture. And I hear that kind of argument a lot from us as film fans, that like, man, why are they making, I'd rather have this sort of a movie than a part 3 of that movie franchise. It's like, well, wait a minute. You're acting like if they didn't make part 3 of that movie franchise, they would have made this movie you're talking about. One doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the other. If anything, what I would suggest, Anonymous, is that if they do a live action Moana movie, which it looks like they're going to do, and if it turns out great, and that's a big if, but if it does, that I think would increase the chances of other stories about Polynesian culture and mythologies getting made. I mean, if it can have success, I think that just increases the chances of that. Because it's not like Bob Iger was sitting around, well, we can either do a live action Moana, or we could do a movie about this other thing. And they chose between the two. It wasn't an either or. So, but hey, if this could happen and if it's good, and again, that might be a stretch and it's a big if, but if it is, it could increase the chances for more movies about that culture. All right, what's next?
Okay, another anonymous here who writes, seeing how the Minions in Wednesday exploded thanks to social media trends, you would think that they would put all their energy on collabing with influencers to promote Shazam. They seem out of touch with current marketing.
I'm not going to say who. I had a discussion with a certain studio executive that pointed out to me that the success rate of social media campaigns is actually fairly small. Every once in a while, a project will like capture lightning in a bottle. I think back to the original ad campaigns and stuff like that, and the kind of the guerrilla ground movement that Deadpool used for the first movies, like just really all that kind of stuff. But they were looking at numbers and showing numbers that in reality, getting influencers on doesn't do shit. It actually really doesn't do shit. And that most of the time when they really lean into social media campaigning, the results are not that great. But again, all we think about are the ones that do have a great result. But normally those ones that do have a great result also have a great traditional marketing campaign that goes along with it as well. Again, there are exceptions, but I think there's this false impression out there that if you just do this great social media campaign and you bring influencers on board, then your movie's going to do great. And the history of it has just kind of shown that that's not necessarily true. You can have some wins, but it's actually in the minority of the times that it works and then when it doesn't. But it'll be interesting to see how that all evolves as the industry continues to move forward. All right, what's next?
All right, we've got Garden Variety Vagabond who writes, let me scroll down. You missed Gabriel Knight, 1990s detective series, both Sins of the Fathers, based in New Orleans, and The Beast Within in probably Bavaria. Both have great action, twists, and use of history tied to with werewolves, vampires, voodoo, and Knights Templar.
I have no idea what that is. Was that like the seed? I think at the time it would have been called, what was CW called before? Was it the WB?
I think the WB, yeah.
Was that the WB? Because I remember there was like a couple of shows in that era.
I know.
It was actually a vampire
Beast Within. I've heard of that. I swore I bought someone that.
Was that show? I don't know. I'm not really familiar with it.
What I'm seeing here, it's a video game. So this might be a video game
it's a video game. Okay.
So yeah, I think this is a video game suggestion.
All right. Well, considering that none of us in the room have ever heard of it, I don't know if that would have been a good one to draw on, maybe. Because remember, you got to also have a bit of that nostalgia factor that people recognize the name and recognize the IP as well. So
when he said Beast Within, what came up in my head was that Wolf Among Us game.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Which is a great game, actually.
That is a really good game. All right, what's next?
All right, Garden Variety Vagabond is back. Voice actor greats: Tim Curry, Mark Hamill, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
I'm assuming he means that they were voice actors in those games. I still remember the first time I heard Mark Hamill in something. It was in Wing Commander.
Oh yeah,
remember that? And the guy who played Biff in Back to the Future was in that too.
Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, I still remember those. And you know what? I still remember too because that Wing Commander game was the first game that I bought that when I opened up, there were multiple CDs.
Yes.
Because you got to remember, like when
disc, right? Wasn't it did you
No, it was CD.
Oh,
At that point, it was CD.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the CDs were because prior to that, it was the floppy disks. This game would come on, right? And so it became commonplace that you get like 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 discs. Now insert disc 3. Now insert disc 4. Yeah. But then CDs came out and they had such a much bigger capacity that all the games coming out were on one disc. And I remember for me that the first time I went to the store, like little Johnny going to the store, I got this game. And you open up and it's like multiple CDs. What? And now to put that in context, I recently downloaded Hogwarts Legacy, which I believe was a 58 gigabyte download. I think it was 58 gigs. To put it in context, that would have been about 100 CD discs. This game would be like 100 CD discs. That would have been very, very big. But when Wing Commander came out, I was like, there's like 4 discs. What? Like it was crazy. All right, what's next?
Wesley C. writes, "Hey, John, I like the way James Gunn put it. Superhero fatigue has nothing to do with superheroes. If all you see are the most commonly told stories over and over or not told well, even clever fights, great VFX can't sustain experiences worth paying for."
He was absolutely right. We talked about this the other day because people keep bringing up comic book movie fatigue. There is no comic book movie fatigue. It's not about the genre. It's about the quality. People get tired of mediocre movies. They don't get tired of comic book movies because if they were just going to get tired of comic book movies, then comic book movie fatigue would have set in 2015, right? That's when it should have set in. If there was going to be just straight up comic book movie fatigue, just people just tired of the genre, it would have happened in 2015 or 2014.
I had it after Endgame. I took a year off from anything.
Well, I remember because you felt like such a crescendo,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
felt so exhausted, like the emotion and everything and built up.
But
I took a year off from all comic book stuff.
But it's not a coincidence that we're hearing more people talking about comic book movie fatigue right now when the majority of comic book movies coming out are mediocre. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Adam. I mean, I liked Wakanda Forever, but it was a significant step down from the original Black Panther. I mean, like, so a lot of people didn't like. I mean, I did like Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, but a lot of people didn't. And so it's not a coincidence that when we're having this big string of comic book movies that have come out that have all been mediocre or okay at best, that's when people start talking about fatigue. It's not about the genre; it's about the quality. Because you start putting out let's say they put out 3 comic book movies in a row. Let's say Guardians of the Galaxy, The Flash, and The Marvels comes out, right? And let's say all 3 of them are on the level of like Winter Soldier, First Doctor Strange, Civil War. Like they're all bangers. Let's say those 3 are bangers. You're not going to be hearing anybody talking about comic book movie fatigue because they'll be great movies. If they're not great movies, then it shall continue.
What's the last one you actually enjoyed?
Like not just thought was good, but like really loved.
Mine was Super Pets.
The last comic book movie that I really loved.
Where you felt you had to
I know what it
find
is.
bad stuff. You had to actually search.
There's
and, like,
two.
yeah.
2 come to mind.
One has to be Shang-Chi.
One is Shang-Chi, and the one that I saw after that I also like, I could say I love that movie, was The Batman.
Yeah. Oh,
But-
thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, Matt. I mean, Jonathan.
I'm seeing it again with the live orchestra.
Oh, did you get tickets for that?
Yeah, at the Kodak, I keep saying Kodak Theater at the Dolby Theater.
Yeah, it's now no. It used to be called the
Yeah.
Kodak Theater. Which is where they hold the Oscars, by the way. Honestly, I mean,
Pets, baby.
there's been a number of movies that I've thought were okay and pretty good, but honestly, in the last 3 years, I can only think of 2 comic book movies. Maybe there's more that I'm just not thinking of, but I can only think of 2 comic book movies off the top of my head that I've come out and legitimately said I loved that, and that was Shang-Chi and the Batman.
I'd put No Way Home in there too for me.
I really liked No Way Home. I really, really liked it. I wouldn't say I completely loved it, but I really, really liked it. I mean, that would be on the next level for me. So I would have Shang-Chi, the Batman, then I'd have Spider-Man No Way Home. And then a whole lot of, that's okay. But that one was good, or that one wasn't so good, or whatever, Yeah. All right. And now, on top of all that, now we got all the stuff that's on TV too. Now we got all the Disney Plus shit. So we've got a terrible She-Hulk. We got it just, and that doesn't help.
It rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue. All right, what's next?
Hand in hand, baby.
All right. I don't know if it's Keesey or Keese Williams. Hey, John, and this is a good follow-up. In Gunn's DCU announcement, he said, Flash resets everything, then moves into Blue Beetle, a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU. 55 seconds in. Do you think this will affect the film's performance as it's canon to the DCU post-Flash? Thanks.
I don't know. I mean, look, it's very, very difficult to kind of base a hypothesis off of just a out of context comment for 2 movies that we haven't seen. Because I don't know what's going to happen in The Flash, and I certainly don't know what's going to happen in Blue Beetle. It could be, and I don't know if they have future plans for Blue Beetle. Look, we talked about this on the show the other day, and I talked about it on open mic. Blue Beetle, even though I think the trailer looked really good, this is a movie that is going to struggle to make a lot of money at the box office. You look at what's happening in a pattern-wise with the DC movies with Black Adam, Shazam 2. Now this is a character that nobody knows and stuff like that. Hopefully the Latino audience can really get out there and support it. Hopefully it's good, but it's really, really hard to say until we get a little bit more context.
I had no idea he said that. That's good news for the Blue Beetle cast, at least a little bit of good news. Maybe if it does well,
I wouldn't
really exist.
I mean, he kind of also said Shazam you could technically use in his world too.
Yep.
He said that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't read too much into it.
He might not make a Shazam movie.
I will.
He might not make a Shazam movie, but he might use that actor as Shazam in a movie. We'll see.
All right, what's next?
Quentin Shibusawa writes in two-parter, my issue with the Harry Potter news is we aren't sure what it means for the future of the films. Does this shut the door on the OG cast coming to do their own movie? Does Wizarding World at Universal change? Or will it simply be like DCU Elseworld? I think that was it, because there's no other part there. So yeah, kind of what happens with that world.
I don't think it would really affect anything. Because if it's kind of a reboot and stuff like that, I mean, you could still tell stories about the adult cast of Harry Potter. However, as optimistic as I have been about getting the adult cast of Harry Potter back, the reality is ain't none of them have ever given the remotest hint that they're interested in coming back to play those roles again.
Yeah. If anything, the opposite.
Yeah, if anything, I would love it. And I think it's instantly a $3 billion film. I think it's the first $3 billion film in history. But nothing that the cast have said remotely sounds like they'd be even a little bit interested in doing
They're
it.
living so high on those residuals.
Yeah,
he brings up a good point. Like, so no movie was mentioned in the news we just reported the other day, right?
No, it's all
movie
about
at
a series.
It's a series. Do you think that has something to do with also how big that Harry Potter reunion did? They're like, oh, if we could get those numbers.
Oh,
for
100%.
the series.
100%. I said this when that Harry Potter reunion special came out. When you look at the numbers, the people who watched that thing, how passionate they were, if anything, that is just reaffirms that this is still an incredibly, incredibly valuable property. And then, of course, the sales of Hogwarts Legacy, I'm sure, just reinforce that even more. All right, what's next?
All right, more on Potter. Orange Hand writes, should this new Potter series find a way to distinguish itself aesthetically from the films, or keep the look fairly familiar with what fans are used to? I'd be down for Guillermo del Toro-esque flavor or some other unique design.
I don't think. Listen, I love Guillermo del Toro. Guillermo del Toro's style does not mesh with the Harry Potter stuff. I don't think it meshes well at all there, especially when you look at things like the approach he took to Pinocchio and things like. I just don't think that fits for Harry Potter. And Guillermo del Toro is a genius, but I just don't think that's the right fit for him. I think you stay with the same general aesthetic because you still have the books, right? It's all going to be based on the books, and the books have their own style, tone, and I think the aesthetics are going to follow suit. So I'm going to think they keep them the same. All right, what's next?
Simple Jackski writes, hey, John, just wanted to see if you had a chance to see the trailer for Bert Kreischer's The Machine movie. As a big stand-up comedy fan, I can't wait for it, but not sure if it's on many other people's radar outside of the stand-up community.
This movie might be awesome. I thought the trailer was terrible.
Yeah, me too.
And it's got Mark Hamill in it. But so I want to like it. The trailer was really bad. Now remember, it's not the director who makes the trailer. Remember, they take the footage from it and then they hand it off to trailer companies or trailer divisions that they do it and put those things together. It's not the director, it's not the actors who do it, anything like that. So the movie might be fantastic. It might be great.
Just like Easter Sunday.
Based
on a comedian.
Oh, that movie was so bad.
Oh, I love that.
But yeah, man, I thought the trailer was really bad. So I hope, and again, that might not be the movie's fault. That might just be the trailer company's fault. So I hope to see another trailer, and I hope that the next trailer will be much, much better. All right, what's next?
Okay, Lee Crow with a $20 tip.
Thank you, Lee.
Writes, yo, crew, took tomorrow, today when you read this probably, off, and I have a double feature of Mario Brothers and Air advanced screening. Oh, I did that with the Investor Connect at AMC. Can't wait. Only question is which one to have popcorn with. Have a great day.
The answer is both.
Yeah.
You get enough popcorn that you enjoy it for both.
Get a large and you get the free refill.
I'm going to go see Air tomorrow, I believe. I don't have my phone. I'm going to look that up. I believe I'm going to go. You saw Air?
I saw it last week.
What did you think about it?
I loved it. I thought it was great. And they say like, oh, it's one of the greatest sports movies. It's not a sports movie at all. It really is just about the business side of it and the family and his mother. I thought it was great. I thought Jason Bateman, for a supporting role, I thought he was my favorite supporting cast member in that. Even over Affleck. I mean, he had a smaller role, even though he's the CEO. And of course, Damon.
Baby.
Took the cake. But yeah, I mean,
He always takes
even like Marlon Wayans has a small role, but it's so pivotal for the story. I won't give it all away, but he had a great moment too. So I highly recommend Air.
Oh crap! I got tickets to see it today.
What time?
Bye.
At 4:45.
Okay.
I knew I was seeing it this week. I didn't realize I had tickets for it today.
No,
So-
you're gonna love it. It's great.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
All right. Super. I'm reading the key on the Stream Deck. Super chats. All right. Lee Crow writes. Wait, maybe Air is an advanced screening. Cinemark app told me it was. Bastards. Since I have a second chat, AMC popcorn is the worst. Number 1 is Harkins, 2 Cinemark, 3 AMC, at least for the major chains around Arizona, in my opinion.
Listen, I'll tell you what. AMC is my favorite movie theater to go to, despite the fact that they have a moron of a CEO.
Shout out.
In my opinion.
What's up?
That said, what's up? But and I have popcorn every time I go to AMC. It is not the best popcorn. It's not the best. And then they had some pretty good. They started gourmet popcorn
Oh, yeah.
where they had the cheddar and the caramel and stuff like that.
Oh, they had Oreo when we
And then
watched
they-
Creed.
Yep.
And I said, I'm getting that in the next movie. I think we watched something the next day.
And it was gone.
It was gone.
It was gone. And I really like their cheddar gourmet popcorn. I started getting the cheddar gourmet popcorn instead of the regular popcorn
Where's
every
that
time I
at?
went.
Which theater?
What's that?
Which theater?
At AMC
Oh, okay.
Tyler. And then they stopped serving it.
But I saw what you
don't
and
have it there.
Ann were having last night at Mario Brothers. Those shakes.
Yeah, that was serious. We saw it at an AMC dine-in theater.
Oh,
I've never
man.
done. Is that like an iPick?
It not physically like an iPick, but
Yeah.
it's you can order your food. They'll bring
That's
it.
cool.
We ordered our food in advance online. Just told them what our seat number was, and we put in our full food order. And 5 minutes before the movie started, waiter came in, brought us all of our
Yup,
stuff.
John had the Oreo shake, and they
Yeah.
stacked these Oreos like on the straw, like 3 of them. And then Ann had like this chocolate shake, and they had a whole square of brownie, just
A big giant brownie
just-
down at the
just
bottom.
on the top.
They did it right.
I was
I'll give
like,
them
wow.
props for that. They get it, but their popcorn not so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say someone wrote a movie about a shoe. It is not about a shoe. It's about the human stories behind all of that and where Nike was as a company. It's really engaging.
All right, what's next?
Anonymous writes, Shazam 2 will be available on VOD this Friday, April 7th. That's very fast. 21 days only after opening in theaters. Very sad to see this movie collapse like this. I hope The Flash will have different results.
Yeah, listen, it broke my heart to do the story about it the other day. But I gave all the statistics. I showed all the numbers. I showed all the analytics. There is no way to cut it. Shazam 2 was an absolute horrendous flop. And I like that movie. I liked it quite a bit. It deserved better. But yeah, I mean, it is really unfortunate. And if there were any plans for more Shazam, I think those plans are gone now. I mean, I don't know that for a fact. That's just me guessing. All right, what's next?
Okay. Just a Sub 32 wrote, Game Day.
Game Day?
It's unfortunate there is no story, as you mentioned, but that's all right. The Mario games never really have much of a story anyway. Looking
right.
forward to it tonight. Yeah, he goes and rescues a princess.
You are 1,000% correct that the Mario games, none of them have like what you would call a super compelling story.
Nor did Legos, though.
I was about to say that exact same thing. Neither does Lego. And yet they put a really emotional, good story in with the movie, and it just elevated it to truly one of the great animated films of that year and of the 1 or 2 years surrounding it. And I think if Mario was able to maintain all of the humor and delight and nostalgia and all that kind of stuff, while also taking the time to put in like a really interesting story at the same time, we could have been looking at a really, really interesting film. As it stands, it's a fun night at the movies. I had a good time. I recommend people go see it. But
They
it could
tried,
have been
right?
better.
They tried though, John. That one thing at the end, like the story, the underlying thread in that movie, it just didn't hit.
Oh no, it
Lego
didn't
did.
hit at all. And it wasn't an interesting story to begin with. I mean, really. But hey, listen, the movie's worth seeing just to hear Jack Black sing that song.
Oh yeah.
And I won't repeat it, but just The movie itself is worth it just for that.
It just dawned on me, Chris Pratt is in both of these, Lego movie and that.
That's true, yeah, which I'm sure is part of the reason why he's in the Mario movie. Because also the guy who does the voice of Luigi, Charlie Day, he also is a voice in the Lego movies as well.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, what's next?
All right. Anonymous writes, recently Charlie Cox said that while shooting Spider-Man, he was told to pause so the audience had time to clap. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, do you think the Scorsese comments about CBMs are still misguided?
Yes, 100%. They're still misguided. Because listen, that is understanding your audience. Listen, as a storyteller, you're only going to be as good of a storyteller as your ability to understand your audience. Right? Because different audiences will hear the story in different ways. And sometimes you got to change the way you tell the story for the audience you're speaking to. With Marvel, they understand that when this moment happens, there is going to be a significant reaction in the audience. Don't put in a real pivotal piece of dialogue in the first 2 to 3 seconds after this, because your audience will miss it. So no, I don't think it is in any way a bad thing to say that you as a storyteller have evolved to the point that you really understand your audience and you are committed to telling your story in a way that it's going to be as impactful as possible. And you know that if I'm going to drop an important line in a moment when half of the crowd is going to be laughing, everybody's going to miss the line. And so, no, I don't think understanding your audience is a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, just from post-production, it gives you, the editor, room to
breathe a little bit.
Yeah, to breathe and to craft that scene.
Agreed.
Clay Woodley said, with the reviews that Mario is getting, I don't think it will be the highest grossing film of 2023.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I kind of got a feeling that Fast X will be the highest grossing film this year. Fast X just got a release in China, and the Fast franchise is huge in China.
Yep.
The one thing that's going to hurt it is the absolute shit turd that Fast 9 was. That's going to be the one thing that hurts it a little bit. But man, I don't know. Now that Mario Brothers is kind of off the table, I don't know if another movie has a better chance of being the number one film box office wise than Fast 10. I mean, it's not going to be The Flash. It's not going to be The Marvels.
I'm telling you, the one I
might be Guardians 3.
Excited for next is Transformers. Just personally.
Yeah, I'm excited too, but it's not going to be the biggest movie of the year. I think the two remaining films that are really have a shot at it are Guardians 3 and Fast X. Mission Impossible is going to be big, but I don't think it's going to be the biggest film of the year. So I think the two biggest contenders are probably those two. So yeah, we'll see.
I'm going to go on a limb and say Mission Impossible will be the highest.
Oddly enough, the movies aren't huge box office.
Yeah, they're not.
Well, I'm going to go back on that.
It kind of blows my mind. Yeah.
All right, what's next?
All right, our final one comes from John Caceres, who writes, first-time sender. Thank you. Avid follower here. Thanks, guys, for keeping me company during my busy days fueling airplanes at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport.
Nice.
I am one who enjoyed Rings of Power, but with Amazon not having rights to the books, is this a lost cause?
Salamat Po. A little Tagalog there.
Oh,
a little Tagalog in there.
There you go.
So it's not a problem because they clearly have the rights to a certain piece of the puzzle, right? And they can tell as many stories with that piece of the puzzle as they want. They can continue on down the path with telling chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the stories that they're telling. They can create original stuff within it. That part isn't the problem. The problem is that 2 out of every 3 people who started watching your show ditched. That's your problem. You can make all types of great content. It doesn't even have to be all that closely following the book. Lego movie had nothing to do with Lego, other than the fact that they were pieces of Lego. They completely created their story as they went. You can do that, but you got to make it good enough to the point that not 2 out of every 3 people tap out. And that's a hard one. All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those tip questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number 2, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so much for your support. And don't forget, guys, you can start sending in your questions for tomorrow's show now, because you don't have to wait for the show to be live. Just go ahead to our tip link, which is right there at streamelements.com/JohnCampea/tip, and hear your question on the show tomorrow. By the way, if you sent in a question like within 20 or 30 minutes of the show starting and didn't hear it read, it's probably because we already had to have the show locked down. You'll probably hear it picked up on tomorrow's show. So make sure you come back and join us again tomorrow. Chris Carr will be back in the studio, sitting over there for Ray Horror with Boo. That looks great. Sitting right beside him, Jonathan Voico, of course, Taylor Gonzalez. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.
Oh, no.
Who is that?
Oh, my God. That's perfect photoshopping.
That's going to be me in like 20 years.